The original intention was to film a moving video of replacing the LCD screen. However, I was just too jiggly and didn't set up a tripod, so we'll have to make do with some still photos and some narration. So the first step is to put the keyboard upside down with the keys facing away from you on a nice tight size tabletop, preferably with a blanket or something over it to protect the keyboard, but also to catch any screws that you drop to keep them from rolling around. So remove the screws from the bottom case. There are quite a few of them. There's 3 or 4 short screws underneath the actual keys, and holding a small circuit panel, or excuse me, a panel that has the place for the USB. And then there's 2 long screws in the middle. Other than that, all of the screws are about the same size. I recommend putting them in a paper cup, labeling it as bottom cover, and keep them separate as you go along. Do that for each circuit board you work on. That way you'll have the correct number and proper length screws to reassemble the keyboard when we're done. Okay, so now that you get the keyboard bottom cover loose, you start to lift it off, and there's one wire as you face it from the rear. The wire is to your left, plugs into the circuit board, and you need to pull that connector loose. This is just smooth, even pressure, no release latches or anything. Once you remove that connector, you can set the whole bottom assembly aside, leaving you a good view of all the circuit boards that you need to get to. The next thing you have to do is take out this big circuit board, the one on your right, and there are several screws around the outside of that board. And once you get those loose, any connectors that you find, just go ahead and unplug them, and you can lay that unit up onto the next forward side of the keyboard. Just tip it over in that manner. The next board you'll be removing is the board to your right, and that very small board, that's got all the connectors for 1/4-inch phone jacks and so on. It's not all of them, but the ones on the right hand side. There's several screws on the top, 5 or 6 I believe. If you notice, there is a hold down strap to capture wires. There's, on this circuit board you're going to be taking out, there's this one here. And then just notice that on the circuit board below this, there's another hold down strap over there. Okay, you take those screws out, disconnect any connectors from these units here. And there's also on the back of the machine, where the composite monitor plugs in, there's one small black screw there to give a little extra support to that area of the plug-in circuit board, so make sure you remove that. And then you can take that circuit board out and just set it aside. Again, hopefully you've labeled the screws, put them in a little container just for that board. Once you're done with that, we'll move to the big circuit board on your left as you face from the rear. On that circuit board to the left, you'll notice that there are a couple of these connectors that use these large wires in the flat cable. Now, these are a little different. You cannot just pull these straight out. The connector itself has a 2-part function, and part of it will slide up and away from the circuit board, and that will release these wires. When it finally comes time for reassembly, then you will also have to, after you get the wires back in there, you press down on that part of the connector to lock those wires into place. Okay, this is a little hard to see here, but this is on the right hand side of that circuit board. There is a strap, flexible strap that you can tie wires down with in the right hand portion. And also note that there is a wire up here, and that is a ground strap wire. It goes to the housing of the LCD, so just remember that that is there, and remember to put it back in. At the left hand side front edge of that circuit board, there's some more connectors and another retaining strap. Just remember where they are. Now once you get all the screws out, you can probably lift this board up and then flip it over forward as we did with the big circuit board. However, you may want to unplug the connectors on the front portion of this board. It's not a problem. Again, with any of the connectors on here, they're only going to go in one place. They're all designed so you can't plug the wrong thing into the wrong connector. Once you get that circuit board out, there is a large flat cable that you need to unplug. Right here you see it unplugged and taped to the underside of the large circuit board just to keep it out of the way. That strip cable has been unplugged from this connector here. That is your LCD housing. This cable here, make sure that's folded out of the way, and that this lower unit here is all free. And at that point you will take the screws out of the LCD mounting bracket. Now there are the visible screws around the edge. I think it's 4 or 5 of them. It's not too much, but there are some screws that you cannot see, and they are up on the very front edge, and they are underneath a circuit board. They go down through the circuit board and into these tabs on the LCD bracket. So make sure you remove those. Once you've done that, you can pull the LCD mounting bracket out. From there, it's pretty simple, just making the rest of the replacement. Here's a couple of pictures. There are screws that hold the LCD in place. In each corner there is a screw. Once that's out of there, you can remove the LCD screen itself and insert the new screen into the bracket. Now the next picture shows after that I removed the LCD bracket and flipped it over. You can see that pink and white power wires, at least I think that's what they are. And on the right hand side is a flat cable that plugs into the LCD board. Now, this is my original LCD screen, and that connector is dead center, and that makes it nice and easy. However, on the new screen, it was not dead center, and it required a little work. As you can see, it was off center on the new screen. And what this meant was, when I did put it into the bracket, I had to be careful that the connector, flat connector here, was not pinched. There's a little ear on the LCD bracket, and that would press on that cable. So I actually had to bend that tab out and away from the connecting cable to prevent any sort of problem. Then I also found out that the pink and white wires were not going to be long enough to reach the original connector on that first circuit board we took out. So I actually had to splice an extension wire in, and I just cut the cable off the old drive and soldered it onto the new, giving me plenty of extra room. Now once you've got that back in, the next thing is just simply to start reassembling piece by piece, being very careful just to make sure you get all the cables plugged back in. And once you're all done, you should have a functioning screen again, the way it looked before I started, how I was having to work with it by using the composite monitor, and finally a complete screen replacement.